Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Divine Soul Awakenings. Today, we're honored to have a special guest and good friend of mine, Rodney Pollard, who's here to talk to us about the power of ice baths and overcoming PTSD. And he has shared a really good term that I really enjoy about this idea of PTSD. And than it being post-traumatic stress disorder, he's labeled it as post-traumatic growth, which to me is a really wonderful way of looking at what can sometimes be a very debilitating experience in people's lives who've been through very traumatic experiences. Again, Rodney's a really close friend of mine, and it's been a rather wonderful journey watching him grow through. Because when I first met him, he was actually pretty active in his PTSD experience. And over the last 6.5 years, I've watched him transform into a very spiritual, loving, and whole, complete man. And I'm honored that he's chosen to join us here today and to share his story. Just before we get into Rodney, we did say that today's topic was supposed to be about holistic nutrition and pets with Rita. We have rescheduled that to another date. We will be revisiting that topic again at some point. We just felt today's topic was really important, and we wanted to have Rodney here as soon as possible. So again, thank you, Rodney, for joining us here today. And if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and just kind of giving us a little bit of what was your PTSD symptoms like, and how did it all come about?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for having me. Rodney Pollard, born and raised Newfoundland. I joined the military in 2003. I did 2 tours to Afghanistan, 2006 and 7, and 08, 09. I finished my career in 2013. I was medically released with PTSD and physical injuries. I'd say at the height of the PTSD, there was night terrors, night sweats, numbness, no real wanting to be around my family. When I would be out in public or going into restaurants, everything had to be, I had to know the ins, the outs. I had to know the types of people that were there. I was always observing, hyper vigilant, isolated at home. I was on 12 different types of pharmaceuticals, and thought about ending my life multiple times, attempted multiple times, and each time coming out of it, it was like, nope, you have a higher purpose. You have a higher purpose. So in 2016 was when the major spiritual journey really started. I went and I did an 8-week program in Ontario, in Guelph. It was for PTSD recovery. And that, Mike, was where I went and actually heard the term post-traumatic growth for the first time.
I love that term. It is so amazing. And I've actually incorporated that term into my practice, because just hearing post-traumatic growth shifts people's perspective, and realize that there's a way out of this, and there is a potential to change. And I've witnessed that change in you, and it's been wonderful. So do you mind elaborating a little bit on what post-traumatic growth means to you?
For me, post-traumatic growth is being able to understand the trauma, and understanding that it can be our biggest strength, our biggest ally. When I took the emotion away from, or I was able to take the emotion away from the traumas that I was experiencing, I was able to see it for what it was. And when I was in Guelph, they gave me different tools, meditation, talk therapy, and different things, but it was in a group setting where you were able to really dive into it, but then they gave you different things of like flipping the script. So it's like if you were able to see that trauma a certain way with those certain emotions that happen at that time, Well, let's revisit and now be a director of your own movie, so to speak, and go back and now change it. Change, shift the trauma to how would it feel if you never experienced it? How how would your life shift if you didn't feel that way anymore? And it's not condoning that what happened or anything. It's shifting away from it to taking my power back and going, okay, I see that this is something that happened to me. I'm experiencing victim blame. Like the biggest thing I noticed is I was doing this. I was pointing the finger at every external person, environment, and the major implication of all of it was this guy. So when I was able to uh, flip the script of these traumas that were coming up, all of a sudden I realized that the emotion was leaving. There wasn't, and all of a sudden I was able to have conversations with people about the things that were coming up, and I wasn't being triggered. And I'm like, huh, it, and I even got people to like started being a voice where it's like, ask me questions.
Beautiful.
If you're being drawn to ask me questions because you're going to get educated as much as I'm going to get practice at sharing.
You know, it's like you said that you start blaming everybody else, and it's one of those moments that you kick the chair, and you start blaming everything on the chair. It's the bedpost. It's everything. It's like you hurt your back because you dropped your sock and you blame it on the damn sock. Like it's you just blame it on everything else but what you need to do, and that really is something within yourself. And I am curious. It's a selfless act of going into the military and serving into a war-torn area. It really is. And, thank you for that service, of just kind of putting yourself at a risk like that. But, this is pretty common that pretty much I know a lot of Army people as well. And when they come back, there is always some form of PTSD. And PTSD isn't just limited to the military. It's right across in a lot of different areas and forms. But because this is so well known in something that you're going through, did they give you any tools or any preparation to use before you went there? Like anything?
We do workup training and different things like that. It's going over, but like to actually understand the psychological change and the emotional and mental change and different things that can happen, they can't prepare you.
Yeah. Like
they can share experiences or what's happened in the past, but even that, for me, it just, I think it would have just kind of fell in the back anyway, because once you're there, it's almost like you have to have your own experience while you're there and take it all in, because it's different. Like, I don't know how else to word that. It's like, I think it would have gave me some comfort in the beginning, maybe, but they don't really, other than let you know that there's a therapist, there's pills, you can go to your medical or your chain of command if you need or to talk to anybody, but no one's gonna. Like, not that no one, but very few people go, because now you're weak.
Yeah.
And a weak soldier is not someone you want by your side when you're in a war-torn area, or even to come back home, right? Which, I mean, I classify, I say it's weak from that's the societal standard, but what it's not weak, it's actually probably one of the strongest things. And when I did, it's interesting because I had senior NCOs, like my sergeants and stuff, that when I told them that my partner at the time was like, there's something up and I think you need to get help, and I talked to him, he's like, listen, he's like, you do what you need to do, but you need to go get help. He's like, and it's so interesting because he's like, it's too late for me, but he's like, you're young, and I want you to do that. So it was having knowing that he couldn't put himself first, but he was able to give that to me, was, I respected it, and it was the beginning. Yeah.
And I think that really is beautiful that we see in this world today how it's changing, that it's okay no matter how you're perceived, that we're never weak, that exuding and expressing love isn't a form of weakness, it's a form of bravery to show your emotions in public. And it takes me back to even as simple as the truckers that we saw growing across Canada and around the world, and people standing up to invoke their freedoms. And the message that you see was just love. It's like, I'm not here to fight you, I'm here to love you. I'm here to say I'm your brother, I'm your sister, I'm your family. We don't care what you look like, what color you are, it doesn't matter. It is love. So now to have when we hear about the military, and we do know that that they're saying it's too late for me. They know it. They see it. It's like, I wish I exuded love. So that is like ridiculously powerful to have a senior CO begin to express that form of love and show that it's okay to be vulnerable, to say, I need help. And that's like step one, like to recognize within yourself, like, I need help. Like I need love. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Between him, and it's interesting because the majority of the experience that I had with the military was just this uber masculine alpha, almost I would label it as a toxic masculine type. And I was fortunate to have this individual, and after the toll of going through PTSD was a bit too much for me and my wife at the time. She was the catalyst for me getting help for sure, and I have a lot of respect for her for that. But there was another gentleman that looked up, and he's like, you have to put yourself first. He's like, you can't put your kids can't be first, your family can't be first. It's like you the individual, you have to put yourself first, because you putting yourself first fills your cup, and therefore now you're being an example for the people around you to fill their cup, and all the overflow is flowing over to the rest of the people in your life, and it gives them an opportunity now to see what you're doing, ask questions, and pick something from what you're doing that benefits their life, that's going to step them forward, right?
And you said something really powerful there about your wife being that catalyst. And praise to all the women that are emotionally connected and sharing, and this is what they've been showing us all along. But the upbringing for a lot of men was not to look at that stuff, but all along the women in our life have been giving us, nurturing us, protecting us, hugging us, giving us love. And when we have the person that we're second most intimate to besides ourselves, we should be the most intimate with ourselves. And the second person would really be our spouses, our partners, and huge thanks to my wife as well for the love that she didn't even have to really direct it. She's not a squishy, touchy type of feely person, but she is loving. Like we all have our forms of expression of love.
Yeah.
And, and she gave me that space. She created space for me to heal, and she didn't push me. She didn't force me. She didn't smother me. She just created space, and that was her way. And that's exactly what I needed. Women innately know. They know there's. So big thanks to all the women out there.
Yeah. All right, Rodney. So you kind of explained sort of some of the symptoms and some of the things that you went through and experienced when you were in the active experience of PTSD. And as you began to shift your awareness into that post-traumatic growth approach, what were some of the tools or things that you learned or incorporated into your experience that started to shift your awareness away from the trauma and more into who you really are and open you up to that more spiritual, loving man that we see here today?
Thank you. For sure. Well, the very first thing at that point, even when I was at Guelph, at this point, I had no idea what energy was. At a young age, I connected with loved ones and different things like that, but like shut it off at a young age. So when I went to Guelph, I was introduced to a crystal shop, and the gentleman that owned it, Lloyd, I went around, I was looking, and he could tell that I was probably distressed or like out of alignment and things, and he started introducing me to crystals and stuff, and he got me to feel the energy of the crystals, which I never in my life. I was like, whoa, this is wild. Crystals. He showed me my own, where my energy is with the alkaline rods, divine rods. So he's like, okay, have a positive thought, and he went to the other end of his store. He's like, now have a negative thought, and it like came to right here, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. So then I got introduced to meditation. Never in my life have I ever even fathomed that I would meditate or anything. And so I brought crystals, meditation.
So I'm going to stop you there, Rodney. So what did the meditation do for you in terms of helping you process some of that PTSD symptoms you were experiencing?
Thank you, Mike. When the very first meditation that I ever did, I had no idea if I was doing it right or whatever. And when I was there, I received a message from fellow soldiers that had passed. And the message that I received, and I get emotional, even gives me goosebumps, is, you're not honoring us by living in depression.
Oh,
wow.
That's beautiful. That's powerful and beautiful, right? And the fact that you were open enough to allow that message to come through and actually hear it. So how did that message change your experience?
I had to be grateful for life. And there was so much to be grateful for life. And if I, like the divining rods, if I chose to look and incorporate those positive thoughts and memories and things that I was actually having throughout the day, and not allowing negative past thoughts that were already gone, that were not happening anymore, it was like gratitude, and just filled my life. Like, there was more ease. I was noticing nature, birds. I was connecting more, having conversations with people that I wouldn't normally. It opened me up to Reiki, mentoring with Mike to learn the energy healing system, and to actually dive into my own self, and find all the answers was inside of me. So I started diving in and getting to know myself a lot better, because I didn't really know too much about myself until, it was pretty surface level until meditation and energy work and different things started being incorporated. And how much ease and grace and love is actually in life when we allow gratitude to flow in. Yeah.
There's a lot of different processes in order to get to where you're going to. And it feels like there's a big gap. And that's from my own experience of being able to observe my emotions and go through a certain process and experience that gratitude. But that seems like it's the start. I mean, we all start out as a bit of a mess, and then we end up kind of going through this process. And it started out with meditation and starting to becoming more aware to the crystals. But in your meditation, what was your process to eventually get to observing these emotions or getting these messages and even just kind of forgiving and releasing? There's something that you're doing in that moment. That's the part I'm curious about. What were you doing?
I was allowing for whatever it was to come up. And if it was the IED that went off in my first tour when I was overseas, and that was something that was coming in, I went to it and I was like, okay, I feel that emotion. I feel the emotions that's impacting a lot of the guilt and survivor's guilt and shame and different things that came up, which before I was like, oh, I'm not allowed to feel that. So I would just allow it and be like, okay, that's what that feels like. So what would it feel like now if I took that IED out of it? What would it feel like if the situation never happened? Or if the situation happened, but that part of it wasn't a part of it? And all of a sudden it was like, well, there was an ease to it. There was like, oh, I can watch it. I can observe it without actually being there again. I was like, I already had the experience once. So then it was like detaching the emotion to be able to see it. But like in that moment, it was just allowing it to unfold as it needed, but not judging to say, stop. Yeah. No, to be intrusive or whatever. It was allow it to come in, feel what I needed to feel, because that it was there for a reason. And if I'm denying it, then the feeling is just going to keep coming back until I address it. And if it was my boss that I worked with, that me and him, like, I just didn't like him and I had my reasons for it, and he took up space up here. When I was able to forgive him, not condone, but I was able to forgive and let go of the emotions of what I thought I wanted or anything about that situation, all of a sudden he was bound to me in my head and going, you did the work.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to take up space in your head.
Yeah. So it's
right. And I remember when I was doing some work with you in the past, that one of the big things we had to focus on was you learning to love who the Army told you was your enemy, and to learn to understand their perspective, and that yes, they were an enemy of your army and a perceived enemy, but by finding that love and that acceptance and that understanding for what they're going through, how did that change your experience?
They were no different than me. They were the same as me. Yes. They were trained. They were trained in the same way as I was trained. There was a friendly, there was a foe. One was good, one was bad. And what it allowed me to do was love them. Love them. They're no different than I am. And I was able to send compassion and love and forgiveness to them for having that perspective or view of them, that they were so different than what I was, and they were so much worse and bad, and I was good. And I'm like, no, we're all doing the same here. And if anything, now for me, love is the way. Not war. Love is the way.
Yeah. And that's really key what you're saying here, because a lot of times when I'm guiding people through their own emotional release and me going through mine, that first step of getting the meditation, getting quiet, and allowing those observations to happen, but telling your body and telling yourself you're safe. You're perfectly safe. No harm's going to come to you. You can observe these emotions and know that it's safe, that now it's not happening to you. I promise you, I love you. I'm not going to put you in that situation. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm here with you. So you can see those emotions, they pass through. And then you said something else that's really powerful, that you start being able to forgive yourself and know that you're just human, that you're just going through this experience. And then when you start going through these emotional release and these processes, and you look at everyone else around you, we start releasing judgment, because we realize every single human on this planet, and maybe alien, is going through some sort of emotion, some sort of experience, and they need to that we're all experiencing that. And the perception is one side is good and another side is bad. But ultimately, when we're talking about the frequency of vibration, that it's just one same spectrum that may be at a lower vibration or a higher vibration. So it's not good or bad. It is the same vibration or low vibration or high vibration. So why not raise that vibration up, which you did by observing it, loving it, and just saying, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to have those thoughts. There's nothing wrong with you. And in itself, that is that single most powerful step of healing, forgiving yourself and loving yourself. And once we begin to love ourselves, just what you did, you were able to love your enemy. And you're not your enemy. You're my brother. You're my sister. You're another human, and we are all one. And that is like a huge step in realization that you've moved into. Like, bravo, brother. Like that, you hit that. That's huge.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It took till today for me to share the fact that of what you just said, that there is no enemy, that we're all brothers and we're all sisters, and there is no right, there is no wrong. Like
when
you
we
said,
come from love, there's no right and wrong.
right? When you come from love, exactly. There's just presence, non-judgment, and this willingness just to listen and be present with people. It's fascinating. It's glorious, really. Yeah.
Love that.
I just want to take this moment that any of you viewers, if you have any questions for Rodney or maybe a similar experience of PTSD, please feel free to share. We're here to share and answer those questions for you. So please don't be shy. So also, Rodney, I know that in the past that you were a much heavier set man. And through this process of post-traumatic growth, you have been able to shed a lot of that weight that you were carrying. How has this journey actually unfolded for you and allowing you to sort of shed some of that baggage and that weight?
Thank you. Yeah. Interesting, because a visual that was shown to me when I was in meditation in Guelph was like me being, say, in a hole, but like I'm coming up to a cavern, and there's a wall, and there's peg holes in it. And as I start releasing, forgiving, loving myself, all of a sudden it was like, if I was holding on to this trauma, once I released it, it was like 2 pounds. Then when I went into another trauma and released it, 3 pounds. I'm like, the emotional, the trauma that I was holding in my body was actual physical weight. And when I started releasing those, the trauma and the trauma and the emotions, all of a sudden 2 pounds, 3 pounds would go. And even to this day, as I'm like shifting and releasing different things and integrating, I'm noticing physical weight leaving, and all of a sudden my posture's changing, is becoming more erect and aligned. And I'm like, interesting how the trauma gets stored as actual physical weight is what I noticed. Yeah. And release. Oh, sorry.
So, and fat represents, from a metaphysical point,
right,
fat represents a level of protection or armoring over us. It's putting that layer of safety or perceived safety between us and what we perceive as a danger. You know, a lot of times when I've been working with clients and they're having struggles losing weight, a lot of times it's because of old trauma stuck in the body. And this isn't always the case, and this isn't the case for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's unprocessed trauma and emotion that is being held as fat.
Yeah, totally. And I can totally, for me, it was that experience, because from a young child all the way up, I can remember being someone that wanted to take that. If someone was going through anything emotional or distressful or anything, I always wanted to take that from them. I always wanted them to feel better or be happy and not sad type thing. And the biggest thing I realized is it's not my job.
Correct.
Yeah. We got a couple questions from the audience. We have, how long did the process of gratitude and releasing emotions and forgiving take? Is it an ongoing process? Do the emotions and the memories still come up sometimes?
How long did the process of gratitude and releasing emotions take? It's a consistent process, because there's new things arriving as we're living. New things is coming up each day or in a moment. With regards to past traumas that I am consciously aware of, they are in alignment. They're done. They're good. The memories come up. I'm able to share them, speak on them. Sometimes you'll feel an emotion along with it, but the emotion now, if it comes up, is me choosing to have that emotion come up so that the other individual can actually have an experience as well and know that what I'm sharing is important. And then
So I think what you're saying is that you've learned how to disassociate from the trauma.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's totally gone, but as those emotions are coming up, you're able to recognize it as it's happening and preventing yourself from spiraling into the old traumatic response, and instead recognizing it and being able to consciously change your behaviors or your feelings or your sensations as they come up. Does that sound about right?
couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, and that's just part of that process. As you begin to allow yourself to be in a safe space and to observe those emotions, you see that they can't harm you and nothing can really harm you, that everything's okay. And it's out of love. So when it does come up, the energy of it changes, that it just doesn't trigger you. And that's a part. And if it does trigger you, great. Let me observe it some more. Let me give you some more love. Let me keep on, because I'm obviously it's still triggering me. So that's like, oh, thank you. So there's when we start moving into gratitude. Like, oh, great. Now I've got something new to work on, or I've got something else to work on. Thank you for bringing that up to me. And we move further into gratitude, which extends our expression of love even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more, King. Yeah.
And I can identify a lot with this too, because I've been dealing with PTSD for some time now through abuse that I went through from childhood up through. And it definitely doesn't go away, but we have ways to treat it and deal with it. And like you said, Rodney, it's about not staying stuck in that moment, to be able to not so-called go into a state where we disassociate from our body, because that was one of the things that would happen to me when I was going through it. I would like step right out of my body and I wasn't present. And I think a lot of the tools that I've learned over the years with meditation has been huge for me, to work through this and not stay stuck in it, but to be able to put it in a space where I can heal from it, recognize where it comes from, not spiral out of control with it into panic attacks and then have to deal with it that way. But meditation was a start for me. I was on a lot of medication. I went through years and years of therapy to work through this. And really, it's been in the last 4 years of working with William Michael Forbes and Khan. He and I have been doing a lot of work, energy work through this too. But it's brought in a process of bringing that love in, like you talked about, to be able to forgive the person or the persons that I struggled with this with, and not always throwing the blame out there, to know that this came from somebody who was suffering too, and that makes the big change for me. It's been a whole different flip.
Yes, Doctor.
Rodney, I think, what an amazing discussion this is, and thank you for sharing this stuff. A couple of things that have popped in my head is that what's happened perhaps to all of us, and you in this is a very poignant example, is that you're shifting into self-sovereignty. And then eventually when you get there, it'll be self or soul mastery. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're starting to take control, and then as you can look at each issue, it's there as a learning point. And these experiences is all that they really are along your soul journey. And we're all in a similar boat, paddling in a vaguely similar direction, but just with different canoes, I guess, And so it's just, you've had such an extreme experience that it's been a real jolt, which is something that a lot of people haven't had, for better or for worse. But that experience is what it is. It's the experience. And just want to say thank you. It's just been absolutely electrifying listening to you, what you're saying.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Doc. Thank you. It's
Can I make one sort of? I just want to put it out here. Instead of we have post-traumatic stress disorder, which is that something is wrong, and to flip it, I love this growth word that you tag onto it. But could you consider post-traumatic growth opportunity?
Yeah, brother.
You have that choice.
absolutely.
You have the choice, and you're taking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just let it ripple out there, see what you think. But it's just that it actually will shift the whole dynamic even more. So
Right.
instead of people seeing it as a negative thing, to see actually a positive thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like that. I
Love
like
that, brother. Love that.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
it really is something that, you can read all the books that you want, but until you actually start walking the path and doing the work, things aren't going to change, which people are asking, like, so how long did it take? They're putting time on it, and that's not what it's about. The work is the work, that you do it and it's going to happen. Now, from my experience, it happens pretty much in an instant. Like it happens pretty quick, that as soon as you start observing the emotions that you've been avoiding and not looking at, everything just starts becoming really easier. It's like letting that one little bit of pressure go out of that pot that you're in of just over stimulation, of over pressure, and it's like a little bit of release. Oh, I feel good. And then you begin to like want to chase it. So like it was like the worst thing to observe those emotions, but you feel so good afterwards that you want to do more, that the healing process ends up really happening pretty quickly, because you just relieve all that built up pressure. And then it becomes that almost like the maintenance work.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I feel like it's the maintenance work is once the forgiveness and the acceptance and the self-love is incorporated, then it's maintenance work. Yeah.
So, now I'm really curious. I don't know, Mike, if I'm just jumping here, but the whole topic of today's show is about cold therapy, and we haven't really talked about any of that yet. So when did the cold therapy come to play? And let's really want to know about that.
Well, hold on, Rodney. Before you go into that,
Okay.
I'd just like to say, as I said earlier, he is one of the more inspiring men I've met in my life. And the reason why I say this is I believe you're currently at about 140 straight days of breaking the ice on a frozen lake and dipping into that water. And what I find really inspiring, not only the fact that you've made that dedication to yourself, is that you are also sharing that journey with other people. And for those of you, if you choose to follow Rodney on Facebook, you will see these messages that he shares. And a lot of the times he's just writing out a message that he gets for the day. Other times he has shared a video of him talking. And the messages and I don't really fully think you understand how inspiring you really are to all the people who follow you, Rodney, because the amount of love and support and inspiration that you are giving everybody who follows you through this journey of ice baths is truly incredible. So thank you for sharing your journey with us. And please share, what is ice bathing to you? How did you get into it? And how has it changed your experience?
Thank you guys so much. So with the cold plunging, one of the reasons why I was medically released from the military was I ended up with 2 back surgeries, lower back surgeries, two surgeries on my shoulder. So some of the medications and different things I was on was due to pain, nerve, different things like that. And I didn't get a whole lot of relief from the medications. So along with Dr. Joe Dispenza and reframing different things with physical pain and stuff like that, I fell upon Wim Hof 2 to 3, probably about 3 years ago. And I just did his breathing techniques in the beginning. The deep breathing was something that helped with my anxiety, with the depression and different things like that. Last year, I had 2 veteran friends of mine that were doing cold plunging, and I watched them for 2 months from my couch, inspired by them, but still too freaking liking the warm to actually step in the cold. And April 10th last year was when I did my first plunge, and it gave such relaxation to my physical body. The inflammation and the relief I got from the nerve pain and everything else was just out of this world. So 3 days before November this year, I started, and I haven't been on any medications for over six years, other than I take CBD and some THC, and even that has gone in, like, I go days and days without even requiring any CBD or anything like that at all. And I used to dissociate from my body so that I didn't have to feel the pain. And when I started doing the cold dips, not only did I become more in tune with my own physical body, I also heard my own spirit start talking to me a lot more and a lot louder than what this was. And I know we all say it's a still small voice, but that still small voice gets pretty loud when you're in a place where the only thing that's keeping you alive is your breath. And
can you walk us through your process of preparing yourself before the plunge, and the process that you're going through, and kind of maybe some of the thoughts or sensations that you're experiencing while you are submerged in that freezing cold lake?
I get up usually about 7. I'm usually out the door by a little after 8. But I usually go around. I have everything laid out throughout the house, and I pick up my towels and different things. And as I'm picking it up and placing it in my bag and deciding what I need to take with me, I'm doing the Wim Hof breathing, just like focused on my breath, focusing on what's going on mentally for me. As I'm driving, I do the same thing. I'm just being aware of what I'm doing, behavior, actions. Am I in my body? Am I being dissociated right now? Then when I get there, take my stuff, I walk, and as I'm walking, I'm breathing, I'm thinking about the water, I'm allowing the thoughts come in, and it's like, it's freezing, right? You got a warm vehicle, right? You got a warm house, right? What do you, and like, listen, who you trying to impress? Who you trying to prove something to? And just, I'm hearing it. It's all just coming in, and I'm allowing it because that's what the brain does. It wants to keep us safe. It's a part of it, and just allowing it. And when I get up to the hole that it may be frozen. So as I'm like using my axe to break open the ice, I just focus on my breathing, in and out, in and out. Really, the thoughts kind of subside as I'm doing it. And then I just approach it. I stand by the water for a second, and I allow this to do whatever it's going to do for that moment. Then I take one deep breath in, and just before I step in, I let that breath out, and I step in and I sit down with the breath already out. And then I just focus on getting that rhythm in, the full belly breath in and out, and get that rhythm going. I could play music sometimes, but most of the time I just close my eyes or I look around and I see nature, and I could look at the trees and be like, well, you're a fascinating shape, or looking at the cloud. Like, it's just fascinating. The stuff up here all of a sudden just kind of, and it's like, oh, as I'm breathing, I'm seeing the ice particles, the ice crystals, and the way the snow looks a little bit different. And the whole time I'm just honoring whatever comes up, not really attaching to anything. If there's something that does kind of have a little bit of traction to it, then I'll allow it to stay there for a little bit and be like, okay, what is it that you're wanting me to be aware of right now? And once I'm aware of it, I just allow that breath just to pass through and allow it just to go on its way. If it wants to come back again another time, it's more than welcome to. And then as I get out, I do some jumping jacks, and just really stay with my breath, because especially here in Canada, the biggest part is getting out, because it's much, much colder when you're getting out than when you're in. So it's now shifting from a deep belly breath to now like fast breathing, so that you, not fast breathing, but that sharp breathing, so that you can get that heat built back up. And within a minute or so, I'm usually whistling, smiling. Yeah, that's usually the process. Yeah. And then I go and get a cookie from my local gas station and talk to one as a little reward. Yeah.
Well, I was there and I witnessed him go in the ice bath. Unfortunately, that day I didn't have the courage to jump in, but I witnessed his experience in person. And what really amazed me too was that morning you actually had to break the ice off the top of the water. And it took you a good 10, 15 minutes, and you're knee deep in the water already, breaking the ice with an axe. So already you're in that cold and you haven't even plunged in, which I found was truly incredible, because most people, let alone stripping down to their bathing suit outside in the middle of a Canadian winter, is crazy enough. But to then stand in the water, break that ice, to then submerge for 10 minutes was truly amazing. So besides that, what are some of the benefits you've experienced through this process of intentional cold bathing for 140 straight days?
My mind is so peaceful. It has to be and like I actually I can feel the emotions inside coming up of just compassion and love for myself and everything, because it's quite like, it's so calm. And then that transferring over, I have like inflammation is pretty much 0 to none in my body. And I know we all have some inflammation. My left leg had neural deficits in it, large neural deficits, not being able to move my toes and different things like that as well. And I've increased strength, neural connectivity within my legs to my brain. Like, my left leg is much stronger than what it was before. Yeah, like my whole diet changed. Sugars now, if I choose to have candy or chips or chocolate, is I'm choosing to. Before, it was, if I don't know what to do, or if I'm bored, or if I'm emotionally not in a line, I'm going to go and eat chips or candy or chocolate. That was my go-to. Now it's like it's not even a thing. If I do, I have one, or I can stop whenever I want, and I have more control. I guess the main thing is I have more control over my mind, body, and soul, and where and what it wants to do, when it wants to do it. And if this wants to do something, this doesn't want to do it, I can still have that experience. But if this is wanting me to do something that's unsafe, this overrides it. And it's almost like the two of them come down actually and have a conversation with each other. And then they go, oh yeah, that's the best thing. We're not going to do that. It's self-control, discipline, probably some of the best or the most things that I can tell that have come out of it. And like the relationships around me has just flourished even more. And more and more authentic, just loving, kind, compassionate people with zero judgment is coming into my life, which I really love.
Wonderful.
Can I take it step it back a bit, if that's okay? Because you're describing your story about going and preparing and walking to the ice, and then you're chopping the hole, and I'm just getting triggered all over right with this one. So thank you for that. It's something for me to get to work on. Well, so I'm thinking like, even just the fear of being swept away, because you're doing it in what, a lake, an ocean, something like
lake.
Yeah, you're doing a lake, and there's like a big fear of being, trapped under the ice and being swept away, and like what? Okay, so the two-parter. What are you doing for safety and getting yourself ready for all this? And the second part is, what would you recommend to people to be the first step for them to take the plunge?
So the hole that I get in, it's 2 to 3 feet deep, and I sit
It's
down.
deep enough that when he sits, the water's up to his shoulder.
When I sit down, it's right here.
Got it. Okay.
So I'll never, and usually because most of my plunges now in the wintertime have been, my daily ones have been by myself. That was my goal, was to ensure that wherever my access into the water is, it's low enough or it's high enough that it's going to come to my neck when I'm sitting down, but I have access to get out. There's nothing there's no running water or things that's going to end up putting me in danger. Because if the situation or the environment proves danger that I can see imminently, then unless I have a couple people with me, like a waterfalls or something, which is like can be imminent danger, I wouldn't do anything like that. But I ensure the water and different things like that and the spot and everything's all set up. And for anybody that's going to do the plunge, look up Wim Hof. Do not try it without doing breathing. I like to have either like what are they called? Neoprene socks. Or even just like water shoes. Mm-hmm. It helps with it helps you be able to stay in longer without feeling the really impacts on your feet and stuff. You can eventually try both. I do both. Towels, and I would recommend anybody that's not new to it to definitely do it with several other people around them, not to do it on their own. And to really do the breathing, if they have to do the 30 rounds of breathing, I think that's what he says, to really get into the groove of actually getting in. Mm-hmm. Do it that way. And if you're in for 30 seconds and your body is saying get out, listen, because this is going to say you can stay longer, just a little bit longer. Come on, like 5 seconds. It wants to challenge us. But if the body is saying get out, that's the thing we have to listen to.
Mhm.
So I got to say, I do breathing as well, and I've been doing it through my Taoist teacher for a few years now. And the start of this actually was just breathing, and the Germans especially, they use the breath to warm themselves up. And there's a basis with certain tones, frequencies, breaths, and the way you do the breath to affect certain organs and clear them and heat them and change them and allow the energy flow. So it's really cool that how Wim Hof's working with the breathing in order to create the heat and sustainability and the flow of energy within the body and getting yourself prepared before going in the water. So that sounds really, really amazing. Yeah. Would you recommend like maybe doing it in a bath or somewhere local before you actually go into your local lake? And
Yeah. So thanks for that, Kane. So before I got into doing the ice baths in the lake, I did them in the shower. So I started with just running cold water on my feet, and that alone, well, we know it's gonna change the temperature of our body. So I would start with that, and then I'd increase it up to my knees till I got used to that while I'm still doing the breathing and changing around, moving around in the shower, because you're going to get that different awe factor and stuff like that, so your whole body can get used to it. But definitely I would recommend, and the interesting thing is I tell people the shower's harder than the plunge.
Interesting.
Because the shower, every time you move, it's you're getting the awe factor every time it hits a different part of your body. Where when you go into the cold water, it's
fully submerged in
until
it.
you move again, the awe factor's done, and then you just breathe. Which was showers, baths.
Well, I know we had a couple winter storms here this winter, and what you did was went and bought some bags of ice at the store and filled up your tub and did it that way. So
Yeah,
that's always another option for people who maybe you're like Rachel and live in Arizona where there isn't a frozen lake to go jump into. So we have that option of doing it in our bathtub, or you can buy an actual ice bath tubs that are designed to maintain the water at a specific temperature for your use at any moment.
So how would this differ from just jumping in the snow?
Yes, Jenny.
I haven't, but I truly feel that if you did it, jumped into the snow and you did the breathing, I feel like it would be no different to me personally, because the snow is going to continually drop your body temperature.
Right.
And you're in 0 degree climate, which they want that reduced temperature. So I've seen people do it. So I mean, yeah. Now you put that in my head. And the chances are now I'm going to go try that.
So we're going to move the show into outside in the snow. So let's call Rodney.
So much good information. If you guys are enjoying this right now, please give us a like on the video. But I have a couple questions.
Certainly, Reed.
So, one, you just kind of mentioned something that's interesting, and I've never attempted to do a cold shower or ice water plunge, but I went to Sedona one time, and they have this natural spring area. It's called Slide Rock. There's like actual water slides created from this natural spring where you can slide down like water slides. And my husband and I went there. It was like 90-degree temperature. We're coming off the end of the summer, which is 100-degree weather. I was expecting the water to be very warm, and nice. And it was the opposite. It was like so cold, and everybody's just like, all the kids are just jumping in, and I'm like, I am freezing. Like I could barely get in it. But I did, but it was like, that was about the most extreme that I've come to experiencing that. But it was hot outside too. So you mentioned something about just now. Is there an effect with the temperature outside that they recommend it being low when you're in the cold, or does that have an effect?
So for us here in New Brunswick, it could be -5
Celsius.
-5 degrees Celsius. But the wind chill could actually bring it down to -15, -20. Now, I just for me, the coldest that I've gone is, I think, like -20-ish, and that's like with the wind chill and stuff. That it makes it's more challenging and more difficult, and it leaves room for frostbite, hypothermia, and different things if the person's not in that state of following with the breathing. I haven't gone any further than that, like temperature wise, and I don't think I would go any further than that. Simply safety. But what I found with, as you bring up the heat and stuff, doing a cold plunge and then getting out in weather that is similar to what I got in or above what I got in, it's actually a little bit more challenging than the not the extreme lower temperatures, but like the -5, -10. It's almost like the body wants to warm up super quick. So the shivering and different things could probably come into effect a lot sooner than if you were to be like, if it was actually a little bit colder.
That's Celsius, not Fahrenheit.
Yeah, Celsius. Yeah.
So I'm guessing those days where you did the plunges in your bathtub, did you find it more difficult getting out into the heat of your house?
Yeah, so I found that difficult getting out because the body wanted to automatically go into shivering, where I knew the best thing for me was to breathe. But like once we get into shivering, the breathing can get shallower, restricted a little bit depending on how much you shiver, right? So I found that interesting to have that experience and become aware of that, to it being -5, -10 degrees Celsius to even -20. The experience in all of them it all comes back to this, and then this connecting to the breath. And I find the changes in the temperature are giving us an opportunity. I like that. The opportunity to now dive into experience the breathing, and then what is it doing for me? And what am I experiencing? And is this an experience I want to have again?
Did your weight loss start before you did the cold baths, or did it start after that?
Before. The cold bath, the weight loss started when I started healing the traumas.
Okay.
When I started releasing and forgiving and loving myself, that's when now with the cold plunging, it's almost like my body is toning, is becoming, it's wanting it wants the organs, it wants everything close to it. And I think just by wanting it to be close, and even just the contraction with the cold plunge and stuff, I've noticed a huge difference in my physiology, but my weight hasn't changed. My weight changed maybe 3 pounds in the time that I've done it. But like people that know me would look up and say, Rodney, I don't recognize, like, I recognize you, but if I didn't know you, I wouldn't have recognized you 4 months ago to who you are even now. And I'm like, I personally don't see a big change
I see it.
Yeah.
The reason is, I'm sorry to interrupt, Rachel, very quickly, is that cold plunges are said to stimulate the uh, recreation of brown fat cells, and these increase your metabolic rate, and therefore they'll change the way your body handles a whole bunch of things, including energy. But that was the only reason why I asked.
Well, even we'll talk about the energy. Like before I was doing the cold plunging, I was, and I mean, I'm still quite active. I go to the gym and I do cardio combat, cardio kickboxing, sorry, and different things like that. And prior to the plunging, I would take pre-workout. So like something that had a lot of caffeine into it, and that would help me get a pump or whatever you want to call it or whatever. And would feel drained, but like, yeah, drained when I was done the workout. Now in 3 months, I haven't touched any type of stimulant like that. And my strength, my endurance, like everything is has improved, like insurmountable. Like it's wild to even, as I'm sharing with you, just think about the process, like of how strong my physical body has come from the last 4.5 months. Yeah.
Thank you. Over to you, Rachel. Sorry about that.
Oh no.
That's okay. Yeah, so I was fascinated by the fact that you lost a lot of weight from, well, you were saying healing the emotional traumas, and I worked as a weight loss counselor for a while, and I noticed that about my clients. And they would take the diet, they would do the diet, they would lose the weight, but then it would come back because they weren't really addressing the root of the issue, which was usually very heavy psychological trauma, because a lot of people are often, I think Mike mentioned this, putting on layers to sort of protect themselves from the world. It's a symbolic representation of wanting to get like distance yourself or just feel safe in that way. But also I wanted to ask about the physical symptoms that you notice. Do you notice a detox, like a physical detox ever occurring, like after maybe when you first started doing that, meaning like your body might get sick, or you might have like cold symptoms or some sort of physical reaction to where you're releasing built up stress hormones or something in a physical manner? I'm not sure, because I noticed that after I got into that water in Sedona. I came down with like a cold or something, and I just felt intuitively like I was releasing and cleansing, purifying my energy field within in my energy body. And so I was just curious if you
absolutely, totally within the yeah, I got you. Within the first month, so for me it was my left shoulder locked right up, and it stayed locked up for almost 2 months, and I was just like, didn't know why, and I just had to like trust the process that whatever was going on with it was going on with it, which I never usually had issues with it, but then it was like that physical part of it was like, okay, slow down, relax, start resting more. But I did have cold-like symptoms for the first little bit. But since then, I would say my immune system has been, I've had my daughters have been here with me, sicker than anything. I've been around people sick. I've been around people that have had COVID and stuff like that. And it's like my, yeah, I don't know a lot of medical terminology or anything like that, but like, I don't get sick.
You have a strong immune system.
Yeah.
I find the same thing with myself. I never get sick. You know, I'm around sick people and COVID, especially when I'm doing like, I think a lot of it is that once you learn the emotional release, to observing emotions and releasing it, that even when the idea of a cold comes on, you're able to release it and love it and change the vibrational frequency of it, so it no longer affects you at all. Because I mean, the worst I'll get is like maybe a couple of sniffles, or I'll feel something in my throat, and I'll just kind of right away just kind of give it love and just connect with it. It's like, what do you need? And I'll tune into the body. What do you need? And we'll tune in. And yeah, it's taken care of right away, right? Because I know I'm just divine love, protection. Things just don't come into my space at all,
Yeah.
no matter what. Right?
Agree with all of that. I have one more question about drying off when you get out and you're just like so wet that you're outside. What's your method of doing that in a way that keeps your body the right temperature and just helps you to cool down the right way? Or
So usually, or not usually, when I get out, I shift my breathing from a very slow, elongated breath to now making it very like diaphragm breathing. But as I'm doing that, I'm just taking the towel and I'm just drying myself off as I'm doing that breathing, and I'm noticing, okay, like I'll say to myself, oh, I feel my toes, I feel my legs, I feel the different. I don't add anything to it other than I feel the sensation in my feet. I still feel, and I'm just acknowledging it all because it's me. I'm not giving it any power, but I'm just acknowledging it, and and then as I'm drying off and different things, I'll just kind of, I end up being quiet.
So is that part of your process with the body that you're saying? Like, is it, or at least is that a Wim Hof thing, or is that a your thing where you're just
that's me. Mostly what I know of Wim's methods is the breathing and how to get into water and a bit of his story. But other than that, I took his breathing technique and the cold plunges, and then just kind of went with it.
That's
what's all about.
I made it Rodney.
Yeah. This breathing technique is very reminiscent of a thing called breath of fire, which yoga students do. And basically, in very cold situations, they'll do this. And by pumping your diaphragm, the blood that's going through your liver, because the liver is like a heat sink in your body, it's warming up the blood as it goes around into your body. So it's, good on you that you've learned this yourself. One other thing I've heard that yoga people do in certain other groups is that they will have a cold bath in the morning, but they will wash their hair in cold water. Now, that'll wake you up. Sorry, Khan, if you still have hair, but that's another story. The main thing is that it really does. It's not a show and tell. It's not a show and tell. Anyway, more importantly, it's a recurrent. As you can imagine, the constant trickling of water down your head, and then going down your back or wherever else it goes, continues, gives you that same shock effect. And it's very interesting to notice how it's very similar in those two counts. So.
I've heard of, and I'm not too familiar, but I did hear of some of my yoga friends when I explained to them and shared with them what I was doing. They did mention that it's very similar to the breath of fire as well. Yeah.
That's actually one of the first things that I do, that I learned to do in my Taoist breathing, was this breath, a certain breath I had to do 36 times, 36 breaths, 36 times. And it was that hyperventilating type of thing. There's in, out, fully in, fully out, fully in, fully out. And I do that 36 times, 36 breaths and 36 times. And I do that every night. And that was essentially the process of stoking the fire, getting that energy built. So even the people that are feeling fatigued and low energy, that's a massive start to just kind of get that fire in there. Being careful, there's certain rules that go along with it, because you are developing a lot of energy and chi that might go along with it. So there's certain, not to just do it for the sake of doing it, but it definitely is powerful. Yeah.
I like
Well, and if
that.
any of our listeners want to learn that breathing technique, there is Wim Hof does have an app for your phone, or you can also look up Wim Hof breathing on YouTube, and he has a guided breathing and walks you through the whole process so you can follow along. It's a very simple breath, but sometimes just having that guidance telling you to breathe in, breathe out is a great tool to learn how to do it properly.
And do not do the whole rounds while driving or operating any vehicle, because doing the breathing can cause lightheadedness and different things like that.
Yeah. It's a trance.
A trance. Yeah.
You essentially go into a trance with it. That's the same thing with a coming and any type of like a vibration and all breathing work. It's much of it is a trance state. So the idea is to be quiet and present as you do it to really get that effect. Otherwise, you're just breathing for the sake of it without getting the full benefit of it. But as you're present with it and being one with it, you're going to feel the experience. And that's really creating that relationship with the body as you breathe and connect and feel. And you just go into a trance state and create like a rhythm. You know, initially this breath is starting out as being very meditative, that it could be done very slowly and efficiently. That there's that process. Why did I kind of bring that up there? Sorry, guys. I don't mean to put my name up there. I don't know where in the world that came from. I apologize. Yeah.
We have another comment in the comments. Hang on one second.
Even got time for one more before we got to close this up. Yeah.
So Marnie's saying there's a thinking out there that cold showers can start a heart attack. I got an earful from a roommate when I shared how I took a cold shower. Doc, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. It is very well recognized that cold weather can cause a whole bunch of changes in the blood, including clotting, so stickiness of the blood, and also spasm of the blood vessels. And if you have a history of heart disease, then it's certainly well worth knowing. I mean, everyone knows the symptoms of chest pain, etc., etc. But you know, common things are common, and it's more common not to be ill than to be ill. So it's still worth the experience and gradually build it up. But certainly, if you do have any chronic heart conditions, then it's certainly worth being very cautious about this. I have to say, I don't remember reading about having cold baths and having heart attacks there, but certainly going out in cold weather and not being properly dressed is a well-known thing. And I guess folks in Canada and places where there's lots of deep snow, Jenny, they're used to wrapping up warm. It's only people like the Brits who don't bother wearing many clothes, and they still go out and they still get the heart attacks. But that's another story. But the main thing is, if you do have a condition, then be very cautious. And as you know your body better than anybody else, you'll know when to stop. Okay.
Well, I'll add this to all that. My Taoist teacher, in the snow time, he has tons of pictures where he always wears open-toed sandals and a very thin, light pant, and that's what he wears everywhere. And he was born with a hole in his heart, so yeah, like it can be fixed.
And
Indeed.
There's two gentlemen. There's two gentlemen that came, and they actually they added more purpose and more like drive for me to do it. There's a gentleman, Richard, and his friend. They're 63 years old. Him and his friend that go. His friend has a pacemaker, and in October, November, before the lake freezes up, they'll put their wetsuits on and swim the length of the lake, and then take their wetsuits off and do the cold plunge that way. But him and his friend do them once a week here at the same lake that I go to for the last 4 years. Beautiful. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, so knowing that he has a condition, he's pursuing it the way that he knows is safe for him, and he's getting both of them are on no medications, no nothing. And I'm just like, you guys been doing it for 4 years, and I'm like, you're 63. I was like, you guys that's an example for me that at 63 I can step into the avatar that is Rodney at 63 with no medications and no illnesses whatsoever. So I'm like, I thank him for giving me that experience as well.
That's grand.
Beautiful.
That's great. So, just in terms of any last questions, I'm just going to quickly go around the team. Rodney, this has been fabulous, and I'm just it's in awe of this. I'd just like to work our way around the screen. Mike, anything from you that you'd like to add or ask?
I have no questions for Rodney. But just thank you so much for showing up and being present and being the real, loving, honest man you are.
Thank you, my friend.
And I'm going to put
Jenny,
this
the
plug
Snow
for
Queen.
Mike, that
Yeah,
Mike is
sure.
an energy healer and teaches this method of emotional healing. And I know him and Rodney work together. So you go check out Mike's website at energyhealing.ca to get a little taste of this as well, because Mike has a very particular method, and he's been doing this for what, 20, 30 years now.
23 years professionally. Really been doing it my whole life. And I do work with people in person and also at a distance all around the world.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Jenny, anything from you?
I just want to thank Rodney for coming today. I've learned even more, some more tools today, and your open and honest heart that came through today was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Khan, over to you.
I want to say, really, Rodney, it's such a pleasure that you came on here, mate. And it's good to meet another soul brother and be part of it, part of your journey, or just to kind of get a taste of it to be inspired. And one of the things I learned is really about community here and connecting with the community. So I invite a lot of people out to go check out my go to the connight.vip, and there you can sign up for the newsletter and just kind of get a new form of nurturing, where I have my own group of enlightened mastery, where we go through meditations 3 times a week and have a very loving community that people can apply for to be a part of it. And we do this type of emotional release work and creation. And it is all about putting it into practice rather than just reading about it. So hopefully you would reach out to me and join out and be part of that process. Yeah. So
Sure.
I'll
Thank
leave
you.
that plug there. Yeah.
Thank you, King.
Thank you. Rachel, over to you.
No last question. Just want to thank you, Rodney, for coming on and sharing your story and journey with us. It's very inspiring, and so much powerful messages and information were shared. So please share this video out, and don't forget to subscribe to our channels for more informative episodes like this. But thank you again, Rodney, for coming on today.
Thank you, Rachel.
And I'll say Rachel has a beautiful community. If you actually go to facebook.com/group/intuitive soul rising, should go to her Facebook group, but at least go to Rachel's Facebook page and she'll give you an invite to her very beautiful community of like-minded souls. So go check out Rachel there.
As for me, it's been a fabulous discussion. Thank you so much. I only regret not listening to this last week when we were surrounded with lots of snow and I could have gone diving out there. So all I'm going to say is I'm going to go into my freezer and look for those bloody ice cubes and have a go later on today. Okay. So on a slightly different note, I don't know whether, Rodney, if you have anything last you want to say or promote, and we give you this space to do that now. Over to you.
I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to have a space to share my story and maybe connect with one heart that it changes. And if it changes more than that, that's just a blessing.
Thank you. It's been electrifying. So, folks, if you want to know anything more about breaking trauma, you can watch this video by Mike Borg on emotions and the physical body, and we'll put the URL somewhere either down below or somewhere in this session. And you can also watch a guided emotional release that Khan has done. Is on his YouTube website. Okay. Our next show is on Wednesday, the 5th of April, where I'll be talking about family, relationships, and navigating the dynamics of shifting from 3D to 5D. Until then, this has been the team. It's been great having you along, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
You.